Yeah, thank you, Ceann Comhairle. First of all, can I thank everybody for their contribution. We are living through times that people will be writing about in the distant future as a real moment of challenge and change, and also trauma and tragedy in Ireland. As the Taoiseach said earlier this week, we really are in the preparation phase in many ways. While this disease, this virus is spreading relatively slowly today, we know that's going to pick up pace, and this is going to pose enormous challenges for society, for families, for businesses, and we need to prepare for that in the best way that we can, so that the institutions of the state and indeed the people who are elected to represent citizens are doing everything that we can to make sure that we manage as best we can the challenge of supporting people through a very, very difficult period, which will pass, but will scar Irish society in a way that we are trying to limit as best we can. As the Taoiseach has said, we can't stop this, but we can slow it down. And we can ensure, if it is slowed down sufficiently, that our health services can manage to the best extent possible the supports that they will need to provide to vulnerable communities in particular, whether they be elderly people, people with a disability, people with a weak immune system, and others who are in that category. What we're doing today is not normal. We're asking people to facilitate the passage of a piece of legislation that is not getting the scrutiny that it would normally get, in a chamber that doesn't have the numbers that it would normally have. But we're asking you to do it because it's necessary. And we will try to take on board amendments, or the spirit of amendments that are appropriate. And I suspect we will be bringing forward legislation again next week to deal with a number of other things that I know many in this House want us to deal with, and we want to deal with, but we're not doing in the bill before us today. So I hear what people have said in relation to multiple responses that are needed, whether that's to support local radio in terms of providing accurate information in the months ahead when their revenue streams may dry up, or whether it is reaching out to vulnerable communities, whether they be in direct provision centres, whether they be students that are here, whether they be people who are here without permits to be here and therefore may not have the supports that they would be entitled to as Irish citizens. People are people, and they need shelter and support during these difficult and worrying times. I know that a lot of people have concerns in relation to renters. So many people, tens of thousands of them in recent days, have lost employment and will see a significant drop in their incomes. Many of those people were struggling to pay the rent on full salaries in a job. They will find it impossible to pay the rent on social welfare, which is really about trying to support a very basic level of income for people. And so we will legislate to ensure that there will be no evictions during this period. We will legislate to ensure that renters are protected so that they can focus on what they should be focusing on, which is their health and the health of their families through the next number of months. And I know that Minister Murphy and Minister English will consult with other parties to try to get this right for next week. And I hope you'll give us the space and the support to do that. In relation to the concerns around civil liberties, and Deputy Connolly and others raise these issues, I get that. So does the government generally. But there are sometimes when you need to introduce temporary measures to respond to something that has come out of left field. 16 or 18 weeks ago, none of us ever heard of COVID-19. And now we are preparing for it to sweep through our population. And so we do need to ensure that the government, I hope supported by this House, can take the actions that are necessary to save people's lives. Because the decisions that we make and the leadership that we give and the certainty that we give in terms of people protecting themselves will be the difference between whether this virus kills hundreds of people, thousands of people, or tens of thousands of people in Ireland. It's as simple as that. And so that is why we're asking people to work with us. And we will provide as much transparency as we possibly can in terms of the decision-making that is going on within government right now. But you also have to understand that each individual government department is working night and day to try to protect their sectors and to try to coordinate with other government departments how we protect society generally. The HSE is doing the same. And so while everybody is working and we're trying to coordinate that centrally in the Taoiseach's office and in the Department of Health, you do need to understand that because of the pace of change and response, that the communications of that is a challenge. That is not an attempt by government to try to hide anything from anybody, believe me. In fact, we're trying to do quite the opposite, because if we're going to maintain a trust between people and their government and the Oireachtas generally through this process, we need to be as open as possible and as truthful as possible, even if the news isn't good. And we will be. So can I finally say, and we'll talk about the detail as we go through committee and report stage, but can I ask for the support of the House to have a 40-minute sus at this stage to allow the Houses the space to manage the amendments. There are 86 amendments. Many of you in this House haven't seen the grouping of those amendments yet, because I understand that's only happened in the last 10 minutes. I haven't seen it either. So if we could take a sus for 40 minutes to give the spokespeople and the parties the time to study that, then I think we can come back here and move through the committee and report stage in an efficient manner. Okay. So sorry, after passing of the second stage, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Can I take it that the second stage do not